Okay, so picture this. You're standing in an office hallway or maybe a hospital waiting room, and you're staring at a vending machine, trying to decide if you really want that bag of chips or that candy bar. You put your money in, you press the button, and either it drops down perfectly or it gets stuck halfway and you're standing there smacking the glass like that's somehow gonna fix anything. Here's the thing though. The vending machine, this boring metal box that dispenses snacks, is actually way older than you think. And I mean way older, like almost 2,000 years older. And it wasn't invented to sell candy at all. It was invented to stop people from stealing holy water. I'm completely serious. So today we're covering the full, genuinely wild history of the vending machine, from an ancient Greek invention designed to prevent religious theft, all the way to the modern touchscreen machines that scan your face to guess your age. And trust me, by the end of this, you're never going to look at that snack machine the same way again. Let's go all the way back, because the very first documented vending machine wasn't built in America. It wasn't built in the 1800s, it was actually built in Egypt under Greek rule in the 1st century AD, and it was designed by a mathematician and engineer named Hero of Alexandria. Hero is honestly one of the most underrated inventors in human history. He's credited with creating early steam-powered devices, automatic doors, and a bunch of mechanical contraptions that feel almost impossibly advanced for the time period. And one of his inventions was specifically built to solve a very specific, very human problem happening inside Egyptian temples. See, temples at the time offered holy water to worshippers as part of religious rituals, and worshippers were expected to make a small offering, usually a coin, in exchange for a portion of this sacred water. The problem was, people kept taking way more water than they were supposed to, basically cheating the system, taking a coin's worth of water and then just continuing to help themselves for free while nobody was looking. So, Hero designed this genuinely clever mechanical device. You drop a coin into a slot at the top, and the coin would land on a small pan connected to a lever inside the machine. The weight of the coin would tip the pan down, which would pull open a valve, allowing a specific, measured amount of holy water to pour out. And as the coin eventually slid off the pan due to the angle, the lever would spring back up, closing the valve automatically. And that's it, the water stopped flowing. No human standing there monitoring people, no dishonesty possible. The coin quite literally controlled the exact portion size mechanically, which meant temples could now offer this holy water in a completely fair, fully automated way. And Hero actually documented this invention himself in his writings, meaning we have actual historical technical descriptions of how it worked, not just legend or speculation. This machine wouldn't dispense a snack, it wouldn't play music. It had exactly one job: dispense a fair amount of liquid based on payment. And that is functionally, mechanically, exactly what a modern vending machine still does today, just with candy bars and soda cans instead of holy water. But here's the thing. This invention basically disappeared from history for almost 1,800 years. It wasn't like Hero's coin-operated dispenser sparked a chain reaction of vending machine development across the ancient world. It was mostly forgotten, documented in old texts that very few people were reading. And the concept of automated, coin-operated dispensing basically sat dormant until a completely different culture on a completely different continent rediscovered the exact same basic idea for a completely different reason almost 2 millennia later.
That rediscovery happened in England in the early 1600s, where tavern owners started installing simple coin-operated boxes that dispensed tobacco. You'd drop a coin in, and a small mechanical lever would release a portion of tobacco. And this wasn't about honesty this time, it was about convenience and staffing. Taverns wanted a way to sell tobacco even when staff were busy handling drinks. And these tobacco boxes are actually considered one of the earliest coin-operated machines in modern European history, even though they're basically a distant cousin of Hero's water dispenser from centuries earlier, without anyone realizing the connection. But the real explosion, the moment vending machines actually became a recognizable modern industry, happened in America. and specifically in New York City in 1888, when the Thomas Adams Gum Company, and yes, this is the exact same Thomas Adams from the chewing gum story, the guy who turned Santa Anna's failed rubber experiment into modern chewing gum, installed the first coin-operated vending machines on train platforms across New York City. And these machines dispensed exactly one product: chewing gum. This wasn't a coincidence either. Gum companies specifically loved vending machines because gum was cheap, lightweight, didn't spoil, and was something people wanted in small, quick, impulse purchase quantities. Exactly the kind of product that worked perfectly with a coin-operated mechanism. And here's a detail that gets left out of a lot of vending machine history. Some of these early gum machines were placed specifically because retailers realized commuters standing on train platforms had a few idle minutes with literally nothing to do but wait, and a vending machine gave them something to interact with, something to spend a coin on, essentially turning boredom into profit. Which is honestly a marketing insight that still applies to vending machine placement in airports and waiting rooms today. Vending machines exploded in popularity through the early 1900s, expanding way beyond gum into postcards, cigarettes, and eventually small snacks. And by the 1920s, vending machine technology had advanced enough to start dispensing individually wrapped candy bars, which is when companies really started treating vending machines as a legitimate, scalable sales channel rather than a novelty gimmick. And then, something genuinely fascinating happened during Prohibition, when alcohol was completely illegal across the United States starting in 1920, because vending machine-style coin-operated dispensers actually got repurposed by some underground operations attempting to secretly sell alcohol, using modified mechanical dispensers hidden inside seemingly normal-looking cabinets or storefronts, letting customers insert money and receive alcohol without any direct human interaction, reducing the risk of getting caught in the middle of an actual illegal transaction. And while this wasn't the mainstream vending industry by any means, it shows just how quickly people adapted this exact mechanical concept, automated dispensing in exchange for anonymous payment for basically any product, legal or not. After Prohibition ended and moving into the 1930s and 40s, vending machines became a genuinely respected part of American commercial life, and World War II actually accelerated vending machine technology significantly because factories producing military supplies around the clock needed a way to feed workers on rotating shifts without shutting down production lines for meal breaks. So vending machines dispensing sandwiches, coffee, and snacks got installed directly inside factory floors, allowing workers to grab food quickly without ever leaving their station for long, which honestly reshaped how Americans thought about food access in workplaces going forward, cementing this idea that food should be available instantly, anywhere, without needing a person behind a counter. Now, here's where the story takes a genuinely dark and surprising turn, because by the 1950s and 60s, vending machines were everywhere across America, dispensing everything from soda to sandwiches to cigarettes, and companies kept designing machines to be taller, to hold more product, to maximize the amount of snacks crammed into public spaces. But almost nobody was thinking seriously about what happens when these increasingly large, increasingly heavy machines aren't properly secured to a wall or floor. And starting in the 1970s, documented reports started emerging of a specific disturbing pattern. People, especially teenagers and young adults, attempting to tip or rock vending machines back and forth, usually trying to shake loose a snack that had gotten stuck after payment, sometimes trying to steal free product. And in some documented cases, the machine would tip forward and completely crush the person underneath it. Because here's the thing people don't realize. A fully stocked vending machine can weigh anywhere from 400 to over 800 pounds. And if it's not securely bolted or anchored, that entire weight can come down in less than a second, giving someone essentially no time to react or get out of the way. Reports of vending machine-related deaths and severe injuries from tipping incidents genuinely accumulated over the following decades, and this became enough of a documented public safety concern that by the 1990s, organizations like the National Automatic Merchandising Association started actively pushing for updated industry safety standards, encouraging, or in many cases requiring, vending machines in public spaces to be properly anchored, secured to walls, or built with wider, lower centers of gravity specifically to prevent tipping incidents. And this genuinely worked. Reported vending machine tipping injuries dropped significantly after these safety standard changes were more widely adopted. But it's honestly a pretty wild example of how something so mundane, so completely overlooked in daily life, quietly became a real enough safety hazard that it required actual regulatory attention and design changes across an entire industry. Meanwhile, on a completely different track, vending machine technology kept evolving in ways that had nothing to do with safety and everything to do with convenience and payment methods. Because through the late 1900s and into the 2000s, vending machines slowly transitioned from purely coin-operated systems into machines accepting paper bills, then credit cards, then eventually contactless payment through phones and smartwatches, essentially mirroring the exact same payment evolution happening across the entire retail industry, just compressed into these small, standalone metal boxes sitting quietly in break rooms and hallways. And in more recent years, vending machine technology has genuinely gotten strange in ways that honestly circle back to something almost philosophical about automation and payment. Because modern vending machines in places like Japan and increasingly parts of the United States now include cameras with basic facial analysis technology, designed to estimate a customer's approximate age and gender purely to suggest personalized product recommendations on the screen, not to identify anyone specifically, but purely to optimize what gets suggested to increase sales, which honestly represents this strange full-circle moment where a machine originally designed by Hero of Alexandria specifically to prevent dishonest human behavior around payment has evolved into a machine now using data and cameras to actively predict and influence human behavior around payment instead.
So here's where this whole story kind of loops back on itself in a way that's genuinely satisfying once you notice it, because the entire concept underlying every single vending machine that has ever existed, from ancient Egyptian temples dispensing holy water to English tobacco boxes in taverns, to Thomas Adams gum machines on New York train platforms, to World War II factory floors keeping workers fed during round-the-clock shifts, to modern touchscreen machines quietly scanning your face to guess what snack you might want, is exactly the same core idea Hero of Alexandria came up with nearly 2,000 years ago. Remove the need for a human being to stand there monitoring a transaction and let a simple mechanical or digital system handle payment and distribution automatically and fairly. Everything else, the branding, the snack selection, the touchscreens, the tipping, safety regulations, all of that is just modern packaging wrapped around one incredibly old, incredibly simple mechanical idea that solved a very specific problem involving trust, payment, and portion control in an ancient Egyptian temple. And when you actually stop and think about how directly connected these two things are, an ancient device built to stop religious water theft, and the exact same basic mechanism now sitting in your office hallway dispensing a bag of chips, it genuinely reframes how you think about something you've probably interacted with hundreds of times without ever considering its origin. So next time you're standing in front of one of these machines, maybe debating whether that candy bar is really worth it or nervously watching to make sure it doesn't get stuck, just remember, you're interacting with one of the oldest continuously reinvented ideas in human commercial history, a concept that started with holy water in an Egyptian temple, quietly disappeared for almost 18 centuries, got rediscovered by accident in an English tavern, exploded into a full-blown American industry thanks to a chewing gum company, became dangerous enough to require federal safety guidelines, and eventually evolved into a small computer that might genuinely be looking at your face right now trying to guess what you want to eat.